April 1945. The final days of a war that had consumed a continent. In the quiet German countryside, a new dawn approached, bringing with it an unseen enemy, ghost-like. The first Canadian soldiers emerged from the woods, spreading out in a silent, ominous arc. Their advance was relentless, a tide of change washing over the last vestiges of resistance. High above, in Reserve Lazaret 147, the world outside was a distant, yet palpable threat. Head nurse Margarete Hoffman stood at a second-floor window, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She watched the distant figures, her mind racing, grappling with the inevitable inside. The makeshift hospital hummed with a fragile, uneasy peace. But even here, the war's distant rumble found its way, vibrating through the glass. The sound of artillery, a low growl, echoed the growing fear within the hospital walls, and Zimmerman, barely 19, sought solace in a quiet corner, her tears a silent testament to the terror. She tried not to disturb the wounded, but her own fear was a palpable presence. Elise, 22, stood frozen at another window, clutching a scrap of paper in her hand. 3 small white pills, grim promise of escape, or perhaps surrender. Margarete, ever the stoic leader, checked her own pocket. Feeling the familiar weight of the pills, a memory surfaced. The propaganda officer, his voice laced with conviction, distributing these very pills. He warned them of Canadian atrocities, painting a picture of unimaginable horror. These pills, he declared, were their last resort, a final act of defiance against a brutal enemy. Margarete's journey began long before, in the fervor of 1933. At a Nazi rally, she joined the Women's League, volunteering for a service, believing in a cause. From the streets of Hamburg, tending to the wounded, her commitment deepened. Elise's memories were of a simpler life, her family's farm in Bavaria, a world away from war. Her brief medical training, a hurried preparation for a conflict she never imagined. Then, her arrival at Oldenburg, thrust into the grim reality of a military hospital. Anna's past was etched in the bombings of Berlin, the loss of her parents, a city in ruins. Becoming a nurse was not a calling, but a desperate act of survival. Each woman, shaped by war, now faced its ultimate test, the gymnasium. Once a place of sport, now a grim lecture hall for propaganda. Officers showed disturbing photographs, tales of Canadian brutality filling the air. Fear, doubt, resignation flickered across the nurses' faces. Margarete, following orders, distributed the suicide pills. A heavy burden in her hands, she instructed them to keep them hidden. A secret pact against an imagined horror. In the ward, Eric Vossler, a 17-year-old soldier, cried silently at night. His missing leg, a stark reminder of the war's brutal cost, haunted his young dreams. Elise, with gentle compassion, comforted him, whispering stories of her Bavarian home. Karl Dingler, 53, communicated through scraps of paper, his chest wound silencing his voice. Margarete answered as best she could, her own uncertainty growing with each passing hour. Whispers of Canadians treating prisoners well circulated among the patients, but the nurses, indoctrinated by propaganda, dismissed these as mere delusions. The Canadian soldiers completed their encirclement, tightening the noose round the hospital. The rumble of tanks and artillery grew louder, a symphony of impending doom. Margarete stood at the window once more, her faith in the regime wavering, the reality of defeat, cold and undeniable, began to set in. The nurses gathered in a small, cramped room, clutching their pills, awaiting the inevitable. Anna trembled uncontrollably. Elise prayed silently. Margarete steeled herself for the end. The sound of boots, heavy and deliberate, echoed from outside the door, shouted orders. In a foreign tongue, pierced the tense silence, the door rattled violently. A prelude to their fate, they exchanged glances of fear, resignation, and a glimmer of desperate hope. What she did not know, could not possibly know, was that within 72 hours, everything she believed would begin to crumble, and that the enemy she feared most would become the instrument of her liberation, the aftermath, nurses and patients, now in Canadian custody. Slowly realizing the truth, the propaganda, a web of lies, began to unravel, revealing a different reality. The enemy was not the monster they were told, but a force of unexpected humanity. Years later, Margarete, older and wiser, reflected on those harrowing days, her beliefs, once unshakable, forever changed by the war's brutal truths. The hospital, a relic of a vanished world, stood as a silent witness to history, a testament to the psychological unraveling and the enduring human spirit. April 15, 1945. The final days of war descended upon Germany, painting the sky with the fading echoes of artillery. Inside, by the flickering light of candles, German nurses moved with weary precision, tending to the endless stream of wounded. Margarete Hoffman, stern and resolute, clutched a dispatch, its words a chilling harbinger of their uncertain future. A young messenger, barely a boy, delivered the grim news, his oversized uniform a stark reminder of a lost generation. The candlelight danced across anxious faces, each nurse grappling with the weight of impending defeat and an unknown fate. Later, in the hospital's makeshift gymnasium, Margarete addressed her fellow nurses, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. She read the ominous words. The war was lost. The Canadians were coming, and their world was about to change forever. Anna, young and vulnerable, clutched a small bottle of pills, a desperate comfort against the rising tide of fear. Elise, her mind adrift, found solace in distant memories of her family farm, a stark contrast to the grim reality. Silent glances passed between the women, a shared understanding of the profound uncertainty that now enveloped their lives. As night deepened, the nurses retreated to their cold, desolate quarters, the weight of the news pressing heavily upon them. Margarete, alone in her office, systematically burned patient records, erasing the past, preparing for an unknown future. Each nurse faced their own solitary moments of fear and contemplation, grappling with the collapse of their world. Margarete sat alone, the pill still in her hand, staring into the oppressive darkness, contemplating the ultimate escape. Dawn broke on April 16th, revealing a new reality. Canadian soldiers approached the hospital, weapons lowered. They formed a perimeter, a silent, watchful presence, marking the official end of the war for this isolated outpost. From a window, Margarete and Elise watched, their faces a mask of tension. Bracing for the inevitable confrontation, Lieutenant Crawford, a Canadian officer, approached with a white flag, a gesture of peace in a time of war. Margarete descended to meet him at the door, her stern gaze meeting his, a silent challenge in the air. Crawford introduced himself, assuring their safety. Requesting to speak with the senior medical officer, Crawford told the wards, his presence calm and respectful, interacting with staff and patients without threat. He took notes, his blue eyes observing everything, a quiet authority that belied the chaos of war. Then, Canadian supply trucks arrived, first with medical supplies, then, astonishingly, with food. The nurses ate white bread and butter, a luxury unseen for months. Elise wept, overwhelmed by the simple kindness. Margarete, ever cautious, suspected a trick, her ingrained skepticism battling against the unexpected generosity. A montage began, revealing Canadian soldiers behaving courteously, offering cigarettes, playing cards, Sharing chocolate, Elise received a chocolate bar from a young private, a small gesture that chipped away at her wartime fears. Anna observed, her internal conflict visible, the propaganda she'd believed slowly unraveling before her eyes. That night, nurses debated the Canadians' intentions. Frau Kessler voiced suspicion, clinging to old beliefs, but others, witnessing the compassion, began to doubt the propaganda, their worldview slowly shifting. On April 18th and 19th, the walking wounded were gently transferred by Canadian medics, a testament to their care. Lieutenant Crawford announced the nurses would be sent to Canada as POs. Treated under the Geneva Convention, Anna and Elise reacted with disbelief and anxiety. The unknown journey to Canada a daunting prospect. The convoy of trucks traveled through the German countryside, a stark contrast of devastation and untouched villages. They arrived at a train station, boarding a real passenger train. A small comfort amidst their apprehension. Captain Dorothy Mitchell, a Canadian nurse, greeted them, her approachable demeanor offering a glimmer of hope. Anna was reassured they would not be separated, a small but significant comfort in their uncertain journey. The nurses boarded the HMS Letitia, surprised by the comfort and dignity of their accommodations. Far from what they expected, days at sea passed, filled with moments of reflection. Conversations about propaganda and the elusive truth. Margarete received her PAL card upon arrival in Halifax, a tangible symbol of her new status. She stood on the dock, overwhelmed by the intact city. A stark contrast to the devastation she left behind. Her fears were unfounded. The propaganda lie, the pills remained hidden, a silent testament to her journey. The war ended, but a new chapter began, one of unexpected compassion and the unraveling of deeply held beliefs. In the aftermath of a world torn by war, a new journey began for many. For German nurses, it was a voyage across an ocean, Elise line, her gaze fixed on the passing scenery, saw her reflection merge with the changing world outside the window. Beside her, Anna Zimmerman meticulously recorded her thoughts, her careful script filling the pages of her notebook. Her diary entries chronicled the journey, from the first glimpses of Montreal to the endless flat prairies. Each day brought new sights, new reflections, and the slow dawning of a new reality. Then, a moment that would forever change their lives, the announcement of the war's end. Echoing through the dining car, a mix of somber relief and uncertainty filled the air as the nurses processed the news, their faces a canvas of complex emotions. Finally, the train slowed, pulling into a small, sunlit station. Their destination, Medicine Hat, the nurses stepped onto the platform, clutching their few belongings, their faces reflecting the weight of their past and the uncertainty of their future. In the distance, under the vast prairie sky, the POW camp loomed, a stark reminder of their status, with its barbed wire and guard towers. Margarete entered her barracks, surprised by the unexpected cleanliness and warmth of the room, a small comfort in a new, unfamiliar world. A Canadian guard offered a welcoming smile, explaining the facilities, a gesture of kindness that cut through the tension. Anna, in her own barracks, carefully unpacked, placing a cherished photo of her mother in her locker, a link to the life she left behind. Overwhelmed by emotion, she quietly broke down on her bed, the weight of her losses and the uncertainty of her future pressing down on her. Major William Preston addressed the assembled nurses, an interpreter by his side, offering them a choice that would redefine their captivity. He proposed an opportunity to work at the local hospital, to use their skills not as prisoners, but as professionals. The offer created a palpable tension among the group. Some, led by Frau Kessler, remained defiant, refusing to cooperate with their captors. Frau Kessler, her stern expression unwavering, embodied the resistance. a refusal a silent protest against their circumstances. But others saw a different path. Margarete, with a determined glint in her eye, was among the first to volunteer. Elise, though apprehensive, also raised her hand. A flicker of hope mixing with her resolve, Anna, her intense gaze fixed on the Major, made her decision, a silent vow to embrace any chance for a new beginning. The raising of hands, a simple gesture, marked a profound moment of choice, separating those who clung to the past from those who dared to look forward. Their new lives began in the hospital. Elise found her calling in the children's ward, her gentle nature a comfort to the young patients. Canadian staff, like Catherine Ross, offered guidance and support, bridging the cultural divide with kindness. Anna, with her intense focus, excelled in surgery, her precision and dedication quickly earning respect. Her hands, once used for writing, now moved with practiced skill. A testament to her adaptability and resilience, Margarete found herself in the maternity ward, facing the miracle of new life, a stark contrast to the death and destruction she had known. The moment she delivered a baby, a new life brought into the world by her hands, was profoundly moving. The grateful Canadian mother's thanks touched her deeply. Stirring a complex mix of emotions within her, Margarete's face, a mirror of her inner conflict, revealed the profound impact of this simple act of human connection. Beyond their duties, moments of shared humanity blossomed. Nurses and staff shared meals, stories, and laughter. Elise and Anna, sharing a laugh with a Canadian nurse, found common ground, slowly dismantling the walls built by war during breaks. Catherine Ross patiently explained the principles of Canadian democracy and freedoms to the German nurses. Margarete listened intently, a silent struggle unfolding within her as she began to question the propaganda she had once believed, the weight of complicity. The realization of how deeply they had been misled settled heavily upon her in the quiet of her barracks. Anna, overwhelmed by anger and grief, broke down, her emotions raw and exposed. Elise, ever the compassionate friend, comforted her, offering solace amidst the pain of loss and betrayal. Their emotional dialogue, filled with the echoes of their past, forged an unbreakable bond of survival and shared understanding as summer passed. The nurses adapted, learning not just new skills, but a new way of life. Camaraderie grew, tentative hope replacing the initial despair, as they built new connections and found strength in each other. Anna, her spirit renewed, vowed to learn from the past, to ensure that such atrocities would never be repeated. The final shots capture the nurses looking out over the vast prairie, a symbol of both the endless possibilities and the lingering uncertainties of their new lives. Under the endless sky, the camp, once a symbol of confinement, now faded into the horizon, leaving behind a legacy of transformation. Winter of 1945, a desolate Canadian prairie, a stark and unforgiving land. Here, German nurses found themselves prisoners of war within these humble barracks. A world away from the devastation of their homeland, they sought refuge from the biting cold, yet warmth was scarce, and the emotional chill of their circumstances was even more profound. A new chapter, born of conflict, began. Among them, deep division simmered. 3 distinct groups emerged, each grappling with their new reality in different ways. Frau Kessler's loyalists clung to military discipline, their past ideologies a shield against the present. The majority focused on survival, pragmatically learning English, adapting to their new environment. Then there were those like Margarete, Elise, and Anna, who began to work alongside their Canadian captors, seeking understanding. Meal times highlighted these tensions. Nurses sat at separate tables, the silence thick with unspoken resentments. An argument erupts. Frau Kessler, her voice sharp, denounces those she sees as collaborators. Her eyes burning with conviction. Margarete, unable to stay silent, confronts her. The clash of ideals, a moment of raw emotion and defiance. For Margarete, this camp became an unexpected crucible of transformation. She immersed herself in a new world of ideas. She devoured Canadian books, learning about democracy, a concept so different from what she had known. She also discovered the rich history of Indigenous peoples, a perspective that challenged her ingrained beliefs. A pivotal conversation with Catherine Noss, a Canadian nurse, opened her eyes to the insidious nature of propaganda. Truth, she realized, was far more complex than she had been taught. These introspective moments filled her diary. Christmas Day, 1945. The hospital cafeteria, usually stark, was transformed. A small tree, decorations, and the scent of festive food. Canadians and Germans sharing a meal. A fragile truce in the midst of lingering conflict, a moment of shared humanity. Margarete encounters Dr. Murphy, the weight of her past, the loss, the uncertainty, overwhelms her. Outside, in the quiet snow, Elise and Anna offer comfort, a silent understanding, a bond forged in shared vulnerability. From within the cafeteria, the faint melody of Silent Night drifts out, a poignant reminder of home and hope. Under the vast, star-filled Canadian sky, the nurses reflect, finding solace in the quiet beauty of the winter night. Spring of 1946 brought new life, both to the land and to the nurses. A season of growth and healing began. In the hospital, Elise found joy working with children. Her compassion a balm to their young lives. Anna, with steady hands, assisted in surgery, her skills proving invaluable in the operating room. Margarete, now confident, mentored younger nurses, sharing her knowledge and newfound perspectives visually. Their recovery was evident. Elise and Anna, once gaunt, began to regain their health and vitality. Margarete, too, found a renewed sense of purpose, her spirit mended by compassion and truth. Letters from home and entries in their diaries became vital lifelines, bridging the distance to their past. The time for departure arrived. The nurses boarded the SS Marine Raven, their Canadian journey drawing to a close. Emotional farewells were exchanged. Canada, a place of unexpected growth, slowly faded on the horizon. Their return to Germany was not a homecoming to peace, but to a landscape scarred by war, a nation in ruins. Margarete's reunion with her mother was bittersweet. Joy mixed with the profound sorrow of their shattered world. Elise returned to her family farm, now struggling to rebuild amidst the scarcity and hardship. Anna searched for her home in Berlin, a city reduced to rubble, a ghost of its former self. Suspicion lingered, and the struggle to rebuild was immense. Yet they carried the lessons of compassion and resilience. In the post-war years, their lives diverged, yet their shared experience bound them. Elise, in rural Bavaria, continued her nursing, applying the methods learned in Canada. Anna, after rebuilding in Berlin, eventually found a new home and career in Minnesota, USA. Snapshots of their careers, families, and the enduring influence of their Canadian training. Letters exchanged across continents, occasional reunions, and oral history interviews preserved their unique story. Decades later, in 1976 and 1995, the nurses returned to Medicine Hat. To the site of their internment, now elderly, they stood before a memorial sign, a testament to their journey and the power of reconciliation. They shared their stories with students, passing on a legacy of resilience, forgiveness, and human connection. Margarete's words echoed, "We are grateful for the kindness shown to us." A simple truth, profound in its meaning. The three women stood together, remembering the bleak prairie, the divisions, and the unexpected bonds that formed. Their diaries, letters, and photographs are now preserved in museums, silent witnesses to a remarkable journey. This is a story of compassion, truth, and dignity. The enduring power to transform lives and heal the deepest divisions, as the memorial sign reminds. U.S. through all their trials and triumphs, they remained true to their calling. You're still nurses,